guys, welcome to this video. We decided to do a collaboration, myself, Brandon, and we got Peyton here. Right now we are going to go over our bodybuilding experience because we both have went into the same shows, so it's kind of ironic how that happened. So go ahead and you can follow her
at payfit_23 on Instagram, and my YouTube is Peyton Petracek. That's PeytonPetracek.
And you can follow me, Brandon Wolf. It's just Brandon_Wolf at Instagram, and then my YouTube channel is just Brandon Wolf. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I try to keep it basic, but like I said, we're gonna go over our experiences with what we've seen, what we went through, the diets that we had went on, and the pain and suffering, and also the good times as well. So
yes, what to expect overall as a beginner.
Yeah, so first off, we're gonna start with like a little intro about ourselves. So we'll go ahead and start with Peyton.
Yeah, so my name's Peyton. I've been going to the gym consistently, I'd say about 3 years. I've had a very athletic background growing up. I played competitive soccer pretty much my whole life, and then my junior year of high school I had an ACL and meniscus injury, so that set me back for a while. But I knew I wanted to get back into the gym, working out, because I loved doing that my whole life. And I wanted to keep up with an active lifestyle after school and after soccer. So I got into the gym as a beginner. It was super intimidating, which I'm sure for a lot of people it is at first, especially for girls, going into a gym where it's male dominated. And I remember not knowing how to use any equipment, not knowing how to do like the squat racks, how to change weights on machines or anything. So I kind of did my own research and looked up YouTube videos on how to use machines and different workouts, and I followed a lot of different influencers and just kind of got that background so I could learn that myself. So that's kind of where I got into working out. And then I'd say recently this year, someone made a comment and they're like, "Oh, I've been seeing you at the gym for a while now, do you compete?" And I didn't know what that was at first, so I kind of looked into it. And I didn't realize that the women's bodybuilding had so many different categories. So I found the Bikini division, and I was really interested in learning more about that. So I dug in a little deeper, started following some of the main bikini competitors, and just kind of went for it from there. So that's kind of where I started with this, and I've been loving it ever since.
Awesome. So when I was younger, I was always an athlete. Probably when I was 12, 13, I started playing baseball, just all types of sports. I BMX rode, skateboarding, and then I fell in love with basketball pretty much my high school years. So I would just play that, and I only played for fun, recreationally. And then once I got into the gym, it was probably about 17 years old when I was playing basketball at the gym, but I decided I wanted to start lifting weights as well. So that's kind of where I started to fall in love with that aspect of training. And it wasn't until recently that I decided that I wanted to compete. Probably about 6 years ago is when I started to actually do the bodybuilding lifestyle, to where I can build my physique and try to see where I can take my body, because I realized that my body responded really well to that type of training, the type of diet, just the whole bodybuilding lifestyle pretty much. And so I ended up becoming a personal trainer, and honestly my first show that I wanted to do was mainly just to showcase what I was capable of doing as a personal trainer. So I wanted to be able to showcase what I could do on my own without anybody's help. And so my first show, like I said, it was mainly just to advertise myself. And then once I did really well in it, and I had other people telling me that I should continue and further myself in the sport, I decided to keep going. And then I started working with Chris Dim, which she works with Joe Johnson.
Yes, shout out.
Yes, they're both great coaches. We're both pretty much on the same team now. We both are working with the same support staff, so it's a pretty awesome experience. And then my coach, he believes in me. He decided to push me and tell me that I should try to do the most that I can with this. So now it went from just doing it for fun to taking it to another level and actually doing it and trying to do it on a professional level. So it's funny how when you start something, you don't really know what you're going to get into or how far it's going to go unless you actually do it. So that is my backstory on how I got into the bodybuilding side of it, which is kind of interesting for both of us because we weren't really expecting to get into the competing, but we both started at the Muscle Icon show. That was both of our first shows, which with our experience, I'll start with my experience since we're already here, is I was training at the gym. There was an older personal trainer at the gym, and I told him I was getting ready for the Tahoe show, which was in August, and he kept telling me, he's like, you should train and get yourself dialed in for this Muscle Icon show, which was in June.
Yes.
So that was in June, but at that time, it was like the beginning of May, I believe. So I only had 3 to 4 weeks to prepare for the Muscle Icon show. So I pretty much went on a crash diet, which I don't recommend anybody do. And I was able to actually get myself to that show with such a short period of time. But it was just crazy how the experience went. First experience with the Muscle Icon show, I had stated that I had crash dieted, which I don't recommend, but with such a short period of time that I had, I felt that I needed to. I had to put myself in such a caloric deficit so that way I was able to lose the amount of fat that I needed to present myself on stage. So basically during that time frame, I dropped pretty much mostly all my carbs. I was maybe doing about 75 grams of carbs total pre and post workout. The rest of the time I was doing about 6 ounces of meat, and then I was primarily just having fats from avocados, and that was it. I mean, I was pretty damn hungry and I was a little cranky at the same time, but that's kind of what goes into it if you crash diet. Now, if you don't, then it's not necessarily as bad. But with that experience, I had went into that show and I didn't know what to expect. Like, what do you do backstage? What does it look like? What's the process? I had no idea because it was my first show. So I started going on YouTube, watching other people's vlogs on what they did to present themselves on stage. And I really follow Greg Doucette, very smart professional bodybuilder. He puts so much good information out there. What I will tell you guys though is if you watch other people's vlogs, make sure it's logical, like the things that people say, because people will put misinformation out there. So take it with a grain of salt. Actually listen and even research what other people talk about and what they advise, because you don't necessarily want to follow other people's protocols. But in this case, when I was following Greg Doucette's protocol, it seemed very logical to me and it sounded like something that I was going to be capable of doing at the time. So I ended up putting myself, in such a caloric deficit. I cut all my carbs out, so I depleted myself with carbohydrates. And then with what he does with the carb loading is pretty much the day before you just start loading, and you load on everything, anything. I mean, the main stuff, like I would still have my main meals and it would be just about 300 to 400 grams of rice at a time. But in between those meals, it was eat whatever you wanted. If you wanted a Pop-Tart, eat it. You want some cereal, eat it. Like, just whenever you were hungry, you eat some sort of carbohydrate to start filling yourself up. And also with the dry out process, the day before, I drank about 2 liters of water up until 8:30 in the morning, I believe, 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and then just stopped. I just completely stopped drinking any and all water. And then it wasn't until that evening, part of his protocol, he says you could have a diet soda if you wanted to, which if I look back at it now, I wouldn't have had that diet soda because I felt like it kind of added a little bit of layer of water when I did drink it. Because before that, I looked super dry, and the protocol was stop drinking water for what he said worked. The carb up for me, I didn't feel like it worked so well because I was eating and eating and eating, and I was still not filling up. So it was like I couldn't eat enough food, I couldn't eat enough carbohydrates to fill back up. And I think it was just because I was so depleted that I feel I went into the show flat versus being full and presenting myself round on stage. It still came out with the win though, so
like, even though you got first, it's fun.
there's still a plus side to it. But yeah, as far as that protocol went, that's pretty much what I had went through. I did suffer with the diet. As far as the dropping the water, that was one thing that I did suffer with too, because surprisingly, while you're eating the carbohydrates, you're not thinking about water. But once you're not eating, then the water really matters. Like then you start really thinking about, fuck, I'm so thirsty right now.
My mouth is dry.
So thirsty.
Yeah.
So then it was like about 9:30. It was when I went backstage for the show, because the show started at 10. All I wanted to do was drink water. I did not care about loading up on carbohydrates or anything. Like the only thing I wanted was something to drink, and that's what I was looking forward to the whole damn time. But what I experienced backstage at the Muscle Icon show, and it was funny just kind of to watch people and what they did. I stuck to what I was doing. I didn't look at somebody and start doing what they were doing. My game plan was to go in there, eat when I was supposed to eat, which I told myself, I'm going to have my first couple meals in the morning, and then I was going to snack on stuff while I was backstage. And then about 20-30 minutes before stage time, I was going to eat a couple candy bars, which is what I ended up doing. I also brought rice cakes and honey. That was another thing that I was snacking on backstage. As far as pumping up, for me, I was trying to talk to the host that was backstage with us, telling us to go on stage, and I kept asking him, hey, when are we going on? When are we going on? So that way, at least within a 10-minute time frame, I could start pumping up and get myself pumped up for the stage. Unfortunately, the time frames aren't what you expect when you go to a show. They're going to tell you one time, and then they might end up telling you another time, and then another, and another. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, I was told 3 different times. So it didn't end up being, I didn't go on stage until like an hour later. So one thing that I definitely would recommend is bring plenty of food.
Yeah, lots of extra
food. I caught myself running out of food. Mm-hmm. So luckily, everybody backstage, my experience with everybody there, they're very humble. Most of them are outgoing. Most of them are just willing to help. They're going through the process too. So that's kind of the cool part, is the camaraderie of the sport. And, people back there, they had food, so they were willing to share their food. Some people were trying to share their food. Here's one. His name was Nick. Sorry, Nick, if you ever watch this, but when I seen you chugging down ice cream back there, I thought that was the craziest thing ever. So I thought it was the craziest thing, because I know my gut would have just been all bubbled up, and that would have messed me up. But yeah, watching somebody backstage just taking spoonfuls of ice cream.
Squirting honey out of a jar.
Squirting honey out.
Cracking salt straight out of the container, stuff
Himalayan
like that,
salts.
Yeah. It's funny.
One thing that threw me off was, here's one thing. So for males, the pump up process, because that's not something that you normally see on people's vlogs, is you mainly want to pump up your arms, your shoulders, your chest. You pump up your back a little bit. Don't overdo it. Don't mess with your legs. Something that I didn't do throughout the process that I wish I did was actually lay down and put my legs up. So that way they wouldn't have filled up with blood, and I probably would have had more definition out of my legs. But that was the crazy thing, is I would see people backstage doing squats and doing leg workouts, doing lunges, and I was just baffled because I didn't understand what they were doing. I thought that was pretty wild. But as far as like, you're going to be nervous going into a show no matter what. Like in my experience, I didn't know what to expect. I was also nervous at the same time, especially for the males. I mean, she's going on in the bikini, which that's one thing. For me personally, I've never wore a man thong, and for me to present myself on the stage pretty much in a man thong, like that was something else for me. So it was nerve-wracking. At the same time as having to put on a performance in underwear. So that was something that I was nervous about. So it was like once I got behind the actual stage, and then, you know, they call the guy that's in front of you out, and then your heart starts pumping and you're wondering, oh man, what's next? And then all of a sudden you hear your music start. And then for me, it was kind of a cool experience because a switch went off in my head, and it was just like it was game time. So it was almost like the nerves went away, and it was just time to go put on a show, do what I wanted to do, which was perform. I wanted to put on a show. I wanted to present myself the best that I could, and for me, it worked pretty well for the Muscle Icon. I ended up winning. I won the overall in the men's open bodybuilding. I got the grand prize money. I was also able to get a sponsorship out of it. So I'm now sponsored by Muscle Icon. Shout out to them. Check them out. Use my code BWolf. Get 10% off.
Plug it. So from my experience with the Muscle Icon, I actually wasn't even planning on doing that show. I was prepping. I was on a 16-week prep for the Tahoe show. And then I think it was like 2 weeks out of Muscle Icon, my coach said that her husband, Chris, was judging it, and they wanted me to get into that show as like a practice round for my Tahoe show. So I just felt like, oh my gosh, now I have to cut down in 2 weeks, like do all this extra cardio, because I think I was doing 2 cardio sessions a day at that point. Both were an hour, so I had to kind of manage that in on top of like working and just other stuff in your day. So one thing I do recommend is if you plan on doing anything like this, make sure you have the time for it. It is like a full-time job pretty much. There's a lot that goes into it with meal prepping, getting your cardio in, your weight training. There's just the money part of it, so it is expensive. I will say it's probably like a couple grand for sure. I mean, for me especially, because our bikinis probably run a good bikini $600 to start flat out.
Damn.
Yeah. So that's just for the bikini alone, and then show day, hair, makeup, tan. Hair and makeup.
For you guys watching, the posing trunks for guys are like $65, so don't get too intimidated.
I'm like, and we just have an extra top, so there's like, it's like, dang, but they're like
crazy.
bedazzled and stuff. I don't know, but hair and makeup is around $300 at the venue. The tan is about $150 at the venue. So that's like over a grand just in what you need. The heels for us are about $75 to $100. So just the outfit alone, the hair, makeup, tan. Say you want to travel somewhere and do a show, gotta either pay for gas, plane ticket, hotel stay. You just kind of have to think about everything, and then you're buying groceries. Like for me, I buy groceries probably every other day, just based off what I run out of. So a big thing I would say that I didn't expect was the financial part of it is a lot more than I expected going into it. But from my experience with Muscle Icon, like I said, Chris was judging that show. So I was like, okay, I want to get some stage practice before I go into the NPC show in Tahoe. But yeah, from my experience, it was pretty much the same from what I saw like backstage. Everyone was pumping up. For my division, we did a lot of band pump ups for shoulders, for glutes, RDLs, lateral raises, stuff like that. And then my diet at that point, so before the 2-week notice that I got, I was on a carb cycle. So I did higher carbs one day, and then the next day was more like fats, like avocados, nut butter, stuff like that on top of the protein, which worked really well for me. And then that last 2 weeks I had to really dial it in. So it was lower carb, higher cardio. And that's pretty much it for that part of it. And then I'd say the last week for my water, I was doing 2 gallons that Tuesday, and then it went down 0.5 each day after that. So I was doing 2 gallons, 1.5 gallons, 1 gallon. That Thursday I was doing half a gallon, I think. And then Friday I really had like no water, just little sips here and there to dry me out. And then Saturday, same thing on the show. I think the show is on a Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. Same thing for the show. Really not drinking any water at that point.
That was our experience with the Muscle Icon show, and we're gonna go over what our next experience was with the Tahoe show. And the fact that going from one show to the next sometimes is completely different. So after the Muscle Icon show, so Chris Dim is my coach now. He was one of the judges. Jill Johnson is his significant other, which I was unaware of, or I just didn't recognize her at the time. She was there at the show, and she worked at the orthodontist that I had went to. This is another funny small world story that I was probably 15, 16 at the time, I believe. And I didn't realize it was her. My mom recognized that she was there, so my mom had reached out to her, and Jill ended up, saying that Chris would work with me. So I told her, well, give him my information, and I would be more than happy to work with him. So being the fact that he was a judge, he might have saw something in me, and that's maybe why I got the win. But we ended up working together for the Tahoe show. And what we ended up switching up was quite a few things. One of the things is the training style, the level of intensity that he trains at it's ridiculous. I mean, it's just, his garage is like a torture chamber. And the craziest thing is it's like, we're training in a garage, but it just shows it doesn't matter. Like, you don't need a commercial gym. You don't need all this equipment, as long as you have, it's kind of like some basic stuff, but he does have some good equipment as well, that we have machines we can use, but I mean, it does the job. And so I ended up starting to train with him on the days that I had available, and he looked over what I was eating, my diet. One of the things that we ended up doing is we upped how much protein I was intaking. I think when we started, we did about 300 grams of protein and then 300 grams of carbs. And that was between the Muscle Icon, which was June, right? Mm-hmm. June, and then up until August is the amount of time that we had to work together to get ready for the Tahoe show. So we started off 300 grams of protein, 300 grams of carbs, and pretty much we were able to stick with that consistently through almost the whole prep, surprisingly. And it wasn't maybe till peak week is when we ended up cutting back. No, it was about a couple weeks before that we had dropped down to like 250 grams of carbs, so it wasn't a huge drop off. But then we did do a carb depletion prior to show day, maybe like the last 4 days, pretty much peak week is when we decided to do a carb depletion. So that way we could do a carb fill up as well. So the differences was my water intake. Instead of just dropping the water for that show, I ended up being able to sip on water, but the theory was as long as you were peeing more than you were consuming, you were going to dry out. So pretty much I would just, every time I peed is when I would take a sip. And it wasn't a big gulp, it wasn't a full drink, it was just literally a sip, mainly just to not have my mouth be dry.
Yeah, and that was the same for me too, for this show.
Yeah, so then once we did the carb up was, it was different. I didn't do all the cereals, the candy bars and stuff like that. We did a pretty, clean carb up. And it was crazy. It's just my body, it was processing food so quickly at that time that it still took a lot for me to load up. Once I was able to do weigh-ins is when we started carbing up. So then when we carbed up, it was I believe it was about 300 grams of rice each meal. And then the last 2 meals prior to the show ended up being 2 burger and fry meals. And obviously I had one meal first, and then I sent him pictures and updates, and he would tell me, okay, go ahead and eat the other one. But I mean, that's what it took. And then even after the last burger and fry meal, he pretty much told me just continue eating as much as you can throughout the night without extending your stomach or going overboard. So that's what I ended up doing. Majority of the stuff that I ate was mainly like rice cakes with almond butter,
Typical.
like oatmeal, still fairly clean. But then the next day, the show day, I ended up having another burger and fry meal that morning, because I just still wasn't filled out as much as he liked me to be. So I did that, and then I continued eating rice cakes with some almond butter. I would even put some honey on it. Also, that is one thing that I would recommend when you're loading up on carbohydrates is chicken with rice can be very plain, but if you add honey on it, it's actually pretty good. So that's one tip that I was using that was actually pretty good to me. Because I mean, they're both going to be quick, fast digesting carbs anyways, so it doesn't really make a difference. And then as far as like training goes for both shows, like the intensity of training all the way up until peak week is pretty much the same. And then you really want to cut, like for guys at least, you really want to cut back on legs. So it's like maybe 5 to 6 days before the show is when you cut legs off, because you want all the lactic acid, you want everything to flush out of the legs so you can get the most definition out of them. As well as like abs, I probably stopped training about 3 to 4 days before the show. Other than that, like all the other body parts we still would hit. We would hit back, shoulders, chest, arms. It was mainly just to keep blood circulating. It was to keep burning calories, keep the metabolism up. My cardio for both shows actually was about 30 minutes fasted cardio in the morning. And that was pretty much it. And I think that it was only that because I had already cut so lean from the Muscle Icon show that I just kind of maintained lean up until the Tahoe show. I will say though, after the Muscle Icon show, the next day I pretty much ate whatever I wanted. Maybe the next few days I didn't go too crazy, but I did eat just to kind of get it out of my system, because I knew I was going from one show to the next, and I knew that I was going to have to get right back onto the diet. So I don't recommend it though, now that I've went through it, and I've went through it a couple times. So I'll share that experience with the Tahoe show now. The Tahoe show, backstage was pretty much the same. A lot of competitors were there at the Tahoe show compared to the Muscle Icon. I mean, I even went on the Bikini day when you guys were there, and there was, like, it was unbelievable how many females.
It's crowded back there. Yeah.
And I mean, I was just there trying to get my tan, and I'm shoulder to shoulder getting through these bikini girls. I mean, it was crazy. But the Tahoe show definitely was so much bigger. As far as the male side, there was A few more, but it just seemed like bodybuilding, the open bodybuilding at least, it doesn't seem like there's that many, at least at these shows. So I think it was a total of maybe 10 to 12 open bodybuilding competitors that we were going against. My weight class is light heavyweight, so in my class I believe there was 4 or 5 of us. So it wasn't too much competition, but it was still good competition. As far as like camaraderie backstage, everyone was still very nice. Everyone was outgoing, friendly. Same thing. If I learned my lesson from the Muscle Icon show, so I had plenty of snacks, and I was sharing my snacks with everybody else.
Rice cakes for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, whatever they wanted, I was willing to help them. So these guys, they forgot their food and they get hungry. So one thing that I would recommend though is bring extra meals, because like I said with the time frames earlier, the Tahoe show time frame did not go as planned either. I mean, we were supposed to go up, I believe it was like 9:30, and we didn't end up going up stage until 11:30. I mean, it's a big difference. And then if you're not eating, then you could flatten out pretty well. So definitely recommend bringing extra meals with you, because sometimes just filling up on the snacks that you bring is just not going to work out. Other than that, as far as the nerves, I mean, they're still there. I believe they'll still be there for, a few shows to go. I think every show there's going to be some sort of nerves, because, it's different audience. It's a different venue. Some are bigger than others. The Tahoe show is definitely pretty big. It was a very nice venue. And I believe there was a little bit more crowd there, so a little intimidating. And then it was just a very nice setup. So we still had the nerves, but as soon as my name was called, it was game time. You hit that switch and you just go out there and you do your thing. I felt with the Tahoe show, I kind of rushed my performance, which now if I were to go back, I would have slowed it down. I think mainly I got to the point backstage, and I think all of us bodybuilders did, because we were supposed to go on at a certain time, and they kept putting us off, and then they were putting other classes before us. So a lot of us were getting frustrated, because it was like we were eating, we were so dehydrated and depleted of water, and all we wanted to do was just get something to drink and go and just go. So when it came time for my performance, I was kind of discouraged, so I just kind of went out there. I felt like I went through the motions. I felt like I could have put on a better performance. But as far as that show came out, I had went for novice heavyweight, and I went for the open light heavyweight. The results for that one is I got second in the novice heavyweight. I didn't have enough size. Me and my coach both discussed it, and we both thought that I came in short on legs. I believe I also came in short about 20-30 pounds, because I mean, and being an open the heavyweight, it was just pretty much like 190 pounds and up. I mean, so I weighed in at 195 at that show. So I could have been on stage with people that were 250 pounds. I mean, it was a big difference. But as far as the light heavyweight, I was able to place first place. It was also a national qualifier, so I was able to qualify for a national show now. And yeah, just the experience of it. It was just another fun show. As she talked about though, these shows, they're not cheap. They're pretty damn expensive. I mean, especially being that it's out of town, like.
And most of them are out of town.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
And we ended up renting out a cabin, and my experience was horrible. I don't recommend renting out a cabin unless they have AC, because it was the middle of summertime and this cabin had no AC. So it's like,
keep in mind you have a tan on, so you're like, can't sweat it off, can't mess it up.
I was stressing so bad just trying not to sweat it out, and really I just wanted to cool down and relax. I mean, I'm already dehydrated, I'm depleted of water, and I just felt like I was sitting in a desert in this cabin. So there was actually, between the prejudging and the finals, I stayed in the competitors lounge because it was air conditioned. So, and with my experience from prejudging to the finals as well was, I noticed that I still didn't eat enough food, because between that time frame, I went and had another burger and fries. I shouldn't disclose this, but I had some carrot cake before finals.
Sorry, Chris.
And and they had donuts backstage, and it was very pressuring. So I ended up having a maple donut, and I caved in. I figured this is it. I already did prejudging, but honestly, I believe it helped. I believed it helped fill me out even more, because looking at myself from prejudging to my finals, and my final photos is what I have presented on Instagram, is I looked a lot fuller. And so it really didn't seem to hinder me in any way. It didn't seem to hurt me. So it wasn't a bad idea. And it tasted really damn good. But yeah, the results of that was getting a win and being able to go to nationals, which was really cool. I didn't win the overall, so I didn't get the grand prize and all the extra stuff, but that's all right. I'll just keep working.
I'll take the national qualification.
I'll take the qualifier, you know. So I just gotta, keep working harder to do better for this next show. But as far as the days after, like the celebration, my recommendation, do not go all out, because I did it for the Muscle Icon. It didn't hurt me, it didn't affect me. But when I did it for the Tahoe show, I felt like I was sick with the fever, with the flu. Like for the next 4 days, and I shouldn't have went all out. So my next day, I have a video vlog of it on the YouTube channel, but I'll tell you, I had a dozen donuts in the morning. I had a large pizza in the middle of the day. I had some Chick-fil-A. I had milkshake from Leatherby's. I mean, I just went all out. And then the next 4 days after that, I felt like complete shit. Like, I felt like every time I ate food, I was getting a fever. I just felt nauseous. I felt sick. And so I do not recommend that. I recommend reverse diet, which is eat what you're eating and then slowly work your way out of it, and then you could start dabbing in a little bit of stuff here and there. Because to me, it was not worth feeling sick for 4 days afterwards. I mean, obviously being in the middle of this COVID time, I thought I had COVID, so I went and got a COVID test, and I didn't have it.
You're like, shit, I'm positive.
So that was definitely a good thing.
For the Tahoe show, so the last 2 weeks for Muscle Icon, I switched all my protein to tilapia, and then instead of green beans, I was doing asparagus just to kind of drop that extra weight. So after that show, I kind of went back on to, instead of carb cycling, I had a pretty steady low carb, moderate carb, high protein diet. I was eating oatmeal, rice, berries in my shakes for carbs, and then my protein was ground turkey and chicken for the most part, and then greens were green beans, asparagus, stuff like that. And then going into the Tahoe show, my training was pretty much the same, so I did 2 to 3 lower body days a week, and then the other days were like shoulders, back, biceps, maybe like a full body or other things I had to hit, like chest, triceps, calves. And then training for those days, so for bikini, we want more of the proportional shape, so rounded shoulders, fuller glutes, a lean conditioned core. So my cardio at that point, I wasn't doing too much because I was lean from the Muscle Icon show. So my cardio switched from like 2 hours a day to, I want to say, 5 sessions a week for like 30 minutes after my workouts. And then getting closer to the show, it kind of stayed pretty steady the whole way through with my diet as well. And then that last week is where I cut out like my protein shakes, and just replace those meals with more chicken and green beans. And then going into the show, let's see. Oh, I want to say after the Muscle Icon show too, I also had a cheat meal, which was a burger, fries, and a piece of carrot cake when I came back to my hotel. And that's all I had. And I felt so sick afterwards. Like, I've never felt like that in my life. I think it was just like a complete shock to my body for being on this super strict plan the last 16 weeks and then just kind of having a super greasy, high calorie meal. It just made me feel super sick, and I was just rolled up into a ball in my hotel room, like trying to sleep because it was awful. But the next morning I was good, and I kind of had a couple things. And then I would say after that weekend, I was just reverse dieting, unlike someone over here. And
I went off for a week. I told my coach I needed a week off.
Yeah, so that worked really well for me. I went on like higher carbs. I didn't gain too much weight. I feel like the carbs actually made me lose a little more weight, which is weird. But yeah, so I kind of stayed with that, and then nothing's changed since then, really. I don't think we're going to change much until 3 weeks out, but I've also been having, as of last week, we started cutting this out, but I was doing a cheat meal every weekend after my Tahoe show coming into this one. So I think that helped reverse dieting. I was kind of able to have a treat here and there throughout this prep, which made this one, I would say, a lot easier. It's still hard, and like staying on a super strict diet is really challenging, and low calories is super challenging, but you just kind of have to push through those harder times and remember why you're doing it and where you want to be at the end of it. What I always remind myself, if I want to have like an extra half cup of rice or extra ounce of chicken, I'm like, the girl that's competing against me is doing it to the T. She's not having any cheats, she's on it. So that's kind of always in the back of my head. I'm pretty competitive, so I like to do what I can to know that I'm not cheating myself or my coach, and that I'm doing everything I need to do. So then when I do hit this stage, at that point, I mean, I can't take back anything. So it's just having fun and letting loose. And I think that's super important too. There's girls backstage that are like super nervous. And I mean, I'm so nervous too, but it's just important to kind of like support each other. And like he was saying with the men's, I mean, the women are all super supportive and like hyping you up backstage. So that's really awesome. Just the sport, I mean, the people in the sport are really amazing. So yeah, I wasn't really expecting that, to be honest. I thought there'd be a lot of death stares backstage, stuff like that. But yeah, it was really cool. It was a really cool experience. So I think that's about it for me with the Tahoe show.
Yeah, now we're both going on to our next show, which I didn't even originally plan, but I did want to do the Governor's Cup, which normally is hosted around March or April in the beginning of the year. So I was expecting to do a show the beginning of next year. And then now it's been put back to December. So the fact that I already wanted to do that show, I talked to my coach about it, and we decided that that's what we're going to do. And so the funny and ironic thing is, like, we both started at the same show, and we're both ending off the year at the same show, and we've done the same shows in between as well. So
Yeah,
just both on the same journey. So it's like we both have two different perspectives from two different categories of the sport, bikini and then bodybuilding.
going into it just pretty much from nothing.
Yeah.
And doing your own research and going from there. So
yeah, starting from, like, for me, I did it on my own personally, just to see what I was capable of doing. And then once I decided, okay, if I'm going to take this serious, if I recommend to anybody, if you're going to take it serious, get yourself a coach, get somebody that actually is going to push you and, knows what they're doing as well at the same time. Because when you start to get those peak weeks, like, it gets really hard mentally, because I mean, you just get so depleted of everything, and you just are tired, fatigue. we look at ourselves every day in the mirror, so we don't really get to see ourselves in a sense, because we're looking at the same thing, so we don't necessarily always catch all the fine details that are actually occurring. And I know when I was looking at myself during those times, I think I need to back out. Like, I didn't feel like I was ready for the
Super
show.
confident.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I had the confidence, but once, you got your coach there telling you're looking good, everything's going right, stick to the plan. And that's really what you got to do. You just got to stick to the plan, don't second guess it, just stick with it and enjoy the process, really.
Exactly. That's the biggest thing. People stress too much over, like, oh, I want to do this to have the perfect body at the end, or this or that. And that's not the mindset you need to have if you're going into something like this. It's just really enjoying the whole thing. I mean, you're completely transforming your body, which I think is just so cool and an art form in itself. So it's just like, once you do everything you need to do, that's all that really matters. And then just have fun with it is the biggest thing, I think.
Like, yeah, embrace the experience.
Exactly.
Like, just do it.
Because not a lot of people do this, so it's like, you're that certain percentage that's putting your body through all of this.
Well, I don't know if you've seen, but from what I've seen personally is like, there's so many people that talk about it. There's so many people that...
Everyone at the gym is always talking about it.
About wanting to do a show, that they're thinking about doing a show, that they talk about, I'm going to do a show, in 6 months from now, or I'm going to do a show next year. And then it's just never done. So really, ultimately, you just got to do it. And the thing is, if you want to do it, what's really going to make you do it is find a show and sign up.
Exactly.
Just sign up. Because that's your start. Because if once you sign up, you've already paid, you're set to go now. Like, it's almost, you have to.
At that point.
I mean, you could back out, but now you're wasting your money. So it's really, there's no point in doing that. But I mean, if you're just doing it for fun, then go into it just to have fun. If you're going to do it to be competitive, you're going to have fun at the same time, but, actually take it seriously and follow the program. If you have a coach, follow what your coach says, believe in yourself. The biggest thing that I've learned, and what my coach preaches to me, which is very true, is the more you feel like shit coming into it, the better you look. And it's completely true, because right now we were both 4 weeks out. I feel like shit, mainly just fatigue wise. I'm just very tired all the time. And I think for the most part it's just from very low carbs, but I mean, we're seeing progress on a day-to-day basis almost. And that's what's going to happen, especially when you're at such low body fat percentage, and all your body wants to do is just consume and hold on to everything that you eat. But when you're still in a deficit and you're giving it enough to get by, but you're not giving it enough to hold on to and gain fat. So when you're just doing it just to get by, your body is going to be fatigued, because you're just not going to have the energy. But we're still trained the same, still train with the intensity, the best that you can. I mean, I really try to do what I can. I can tell that in my exercises, I fatigue a lot quicker, but I still push and I do what I can capably. But yeah, just have fun with it. Just embrace the experience, and don't get too discouraged when something may not be going right. Sometimes you have to make changes, and
everything changes by the day, I feel like, too, especially that peak week. You could be looking a certain way one day, and then the next day it's like you see those lines, you see this, you see that, so everything changes like that.
Well, and then pay attention to your body for the most part. That's what I do, especially when you're at a low body fat percentage. Like, you look at yourself in the mirror every day, you should be, at least if you're posing, and when you look at yourself, you're gonna see changes. So it's like, if you are eating a certain way and your body is looking a certain way, and then, okay, say your coach tells you, okay, change this. Let's cut out some carbs, or let's add some protein. Pay attention within those next few days. Actually keep looking at yourself in the mirror while you're posing, and pay attention to the details, and actually see, okay, this is working, or maybe it's not. Maybe you're holding more water. That way you can report to your coach like, hey, I'm starting to notice this. So that way when you go to talk to them, then they could take a look at you, and then you could both, talk about it and think, okay, yeah, maybe we shouldn't use, and it could just be a certain type of carbohydrate, or it could be a certain type of fat. Like, for example, with me, like my first shows, I was able to use avocado, no problem at all. And then trying to do the same thing for this show, I'm able to now, but in the beginning, after the Tahoe show, I was trying to eat avocado, and for some reason, my stomach just would not digest it the same as it was before. I was constantly getting bloated, gassy, I was feeling backed up, it was almost making me feel nauseous as well. So then we had to switch it up for a certain period of time, and I ended up switching up to like nut butters. Mm-hmm. I would switch up to whole nuts, I would switch to cashews, almonds, just to try to get a healthy fat other than an avocado, just because I couldn't do it. So that's an example of, switching from show to show. And then like from the Tahoe show till this next one, what I'm doing diet-wise has been a lot different. I mean, since almost 2 months out, I've been on just very low carb. I've been doing pretty much 100 grams of carbs total within a day. I do 50 before, I'll do 50 after my workout. And then the rest are just pretty much protein, vegetables, and some fats. And my primary fat, I was able to go back to avocado. But like with my last show, I was able to go carbs all the way up until the show pretty much. But with this show, I'm not, which, is a huge difference. Another big difference is cardio-wise. Like, I don't know if my body's just used to what I was doing before, or it just needs more, because going from that show to this show, now I'm doing 2 cardio sessions on my off days. My days off, I train every single day, but as far as my days off of work, I do a morning walk. I've been doing it for an hour in the morning time, and then I'll go back to the gym in the evening time, and I'll do a bike ride for about 45 minutes. So I'm doing about an hour and 45 minutes total of cardio, on top of I'm training every day. Training ranges between an hour and 2 hours of training. Depends on the muscle group sometimes. But the training's been the same, the cardio is what's changed. So, different things may change from show to show too. So like I said, don't be discouraged if you're not seeing the same results. If you do a back-to-back show, just switch things up. Try something different, and hopefully your body will just respond, and you get better results doing that.
Yeah, because what works for someone else too isn't always going to work for you, so you just kind of have to experiment, play with different foods, and just find what works best, really.
So what we want to do now? We'll do let's do.
So yeah, we pretty much talked about each show. Talked about like price a little bit. Did we write anything else down, like other ideas, like question wise, or no? Okay.
Let's do Q&A. All right, so let's go. What was the hardest part for you within all the shows?
Definitely my social life. I basically don't have one, or a lot of people don't really understand like what I'm doing, or why I can't have one drink, or why I can't go out and have a plate of tacos, So, I mean, time with friends has gone pretty much down the drain, and I'm so busy with work too, so it's hard to keep up with your social life and to also kind of balance like going out or having fun. Another big thing is rest, so I mean, I'm not going to be up all hours of the night just going out and partying and stuff like that, so it's kind of like you have to think of that too. But yeah, I think the hardest thing is definitely making time to have more of a social life. So it's It's very hard.
That's huge.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's probably the biggest thing for you too.
That was also a big, huge thing for me. I think for me, especially once I got to this point of competing, like to where I really want to take it to the next level, like
because now you're like dialed in and you want that.
Yeah, so the social life is something that really does, and it kind of sucks because it's like you don't want it to be that way, but you just end up getting in such a mode to where that's what you're thinking about. Like you just don't want to mess anything up. And it's really hard when, especially for me, I eat 6 meals a day, so it's like if I go to do anything, I have to make sure that if I'm going to go out and do anything, I got to have a meal with me. And the same thing, like she said, is like a lot of people just don't understand. Like
unless you're in it, you're not going to really get it.
Yeah, unless you're doing the bodybuilding thing or have done it once before, like you just don't understand the process. You don't understand that the little things matter. Like she said, like they don't understand why you can't have a drink. Well, because that drink has sugar inside of it. It's an alcoholic beverage. Like there's multiple things that does to your body to stop the process of protein synthesis, as well as spike insulin and just, adds more carbs to your diet that you don't necessarily need. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, and then it's going to hinder your sleep too. So, I mean, there's just so many different things that go into it that a lot of people don't understand about it. So I think trying to be around people that understand makes the process a lot easier, compared to trying to argue of why you can't do certain things or why you can't try, the cookies that so-and-so brought to work. Mm-hmm. It's like, I would love to have that fucking cookie right now, but do I want that cookie or do I want an extra cut to my abs?
Exactly.
I think I want to look better on stage, so that's really what I end up going for. But that was a good point, as the social aspect. And then for me, I have 2 daughters, so it's like that's been a really hard challenge for me, is trying to really just balance the total of life, because I also work full time as a correctional officer. I'm training. I train part time as a personal trainer, and then I'm trying to live this lifestyle. Like there's so much of my time being spread out. It's really hard to just organize everything and then be able to give them quality time. So it's still a struggle. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I'm doing my best to do it. But at the same time, as I'm keeping my vision, I'm keeping my eye on my goal, and I'm going to stick to it. And I'm going to do what, myself and my coach think that we can do, is potentially, make a shot for a pro card. So the only way that I know and feel I'm going to be able to do that is to stay dialed in and just, continue to do what I'm doing and stay consistent with it. So
I think that's both of our goals, is hopefully by next year, so get that pro card. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. So you're going to hopefully qualify for nationals with the Governor Cup, right?
I'm hoping, that's the goal. So we'll see. If not, I'm just going to keep going and until I get there. I don't really care how long it takes. For some people, it takes 5 years. For some people, 2. Maybe like their second show, they might qualify. So it's just kind of staying with it and believing in yourself. And I mean, if that's what you want, if you want a career out of it, you just kind of have to stay dialed in, and that's really it. And another hard thing I will say is other people's comments. Like, I don't let them get to me, but there are a lot of adults or like some family friends that are like, oh, you look too skinny or you don't look healthy. And it's like, they don't understand that with this sport, like the goal necessarily isn't, you will look kind of sick towards the end, but then you fill out with carbs on stage. So it's like, even after the show, people think that they're going to stay super lean, but if you're trying to improve, then you have to put on that weight again. So also people that do this show to get super skinny, and then once it's done, they think, oh, now I'm going to stay this lean. I mean, that's not necessarily going to happen. You're going to put on the weight. So I don't recommend people doing this if they already have issues with like eating or kind of like body problems, just because you're not going to be that lean after the show. You're going to put on probably 10 or so pounds, just because now you're adding in those extra calories, the extra carbs. You're not doing as much cardio. You're trying to build muscle, put on a little bit more fat. So you kind of have to have a strong mindset and know that you're not always going to be how you were on stage like the next month after the show. Unless you're going into another show and you're kind of like trying to keep that same playing field, but you have to be strong-minded for sure, I think.
Even then, with my experience, like my muscle icon stage weight was 185 pounds, and then I started working with Chris. Well, like I had said, I didn't do the reverse dieting from the muscle icon to the Tahoe show. So I went from my stage weight of 185 pounds, and I almost want to say within a month, I got up to 225 pounds.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a big calorie difference, especially if you start eating like normally after like a huge cut and low carb, and it's definitely tough. So.
And it's not just all from food either. I mean, and it's not all muscle that weight either. I mean, you're going to gain a lot of water weight back, because especially when you deplete yourself, now your body just wants to hoard everything that you were depriving it of. But yeah, one big thing, like she made a good point, is you're not going to look like you're on stage all year round. Like, it's just not possible. Like, you can maintain...
not necessarily healthy.
Like you can maintain a good physique, like you can maintain some abs, but as far as being like on stage, you know, just for example, say 6% body fat, you're not going to stay that year round unless you're constantly super strict with everything, and it's just unrealistic that people are going to live like that. So it's like when you see all these influencers, or you see, you know, a lot of these Instagrammers, like most of the time they're just putting out their highlight reel. They're putting out their, you know, mainly what maybe they got ready for a photo shoot so they look good, or maybe they just got ready for a show and they look good. Maybe they're a couple weeks out from a show so they look good. Like, they're not showing you their off season for the most part. So when it comes, you know, to all year round, you're really not going to maintain it. So it's like you can't discourage yourself. I mean, you could still look good, like you could still maintain a good physique, but you're going to have a little bit of fat on you. You're going to add that water weight back on, so you're not going to look all dry and grainy,
shredded, and
all the time.
See every single muscle.
It just it doesn't happen all the time. So that's definitely one thing to take about it. So don't get like discouraged, like you've fallen too far off the wagon. Like I said, I went from 185 to 225, and then when I weighed in for the Tahoe show, I was at 195. So I mean, you just kind of bounce back and forth, but like I said, not all of it's muscle. A lot of it was water weight, you know, maybe a little bit of fat that I acquired. But I mean, you'd be surprised how much water you could hold. I mean, I believe for the Muscle Icon show, I dropped almost 10 pounds of water. I mean, it's a significant difference. So your body holds and stores a lot of water weight. So if you think that you're going to be, 200 pounds on stage, well, you got to consider, you got to drop your water first too. So really, when you're coming into a show, if you weigh, and that's what I thought. I went into the Muscle Icon show weighing 195, but I actually dropped all my water weight and then ended up at 185. So when I stepped on the scale, I actually ended up shocking myself. So I mean, I couldn't believe it. I stepped off and then I had to step back on it just to believe it. It was a real thing. So just embrace the experience. My hardship though was sweets. I cannot stay away from. I have such a hard time with pastries and cookies, and especially when you go to work and like I said, somebody has a cookie and they bring a batch of cookies and you're just like, I just want one.
And I work in the restaurant industry. I'm a bar back, so I'm around fried food all day. Servers bringing out burgers, fries. There's extras in the break room that cooks mess up on, so there's always like extra food for everyone to snack on, and I'm like, I can't eat any of that, but it sure looks good right now. So yeah, it's all in the mindset. You just have to be really strong-minded and self-disciplined and remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing and what you want out of it, really.
No, yeah. Another thing is just be prepared. Like we talked about earlier with the traveling. Like, what we both talked about. I mean, she stayed at the same venue. She stayed at the hotel for both shows. My experience, I stayed at the hotel. I stayed at the hotel for the Muscle Icon show, and then for the Tahoe show, I stayed in a cabin. After that experience, I highly recommend just stay at the hotel. It's so much easier. It's more convenient. You don't have to worry about traffic, and if you're gonna make somewhere on time, like you're there, you could just relax. You could have all your meals, and that's the thing. Have all your meals with you. Have them prepared. Just be ready, so that way you could really just relax. You don't have to stress, because that could even really make a big difference on how you retain water. So I mean,
that's a big thing.
Just try not to stress, stay relaxed. I mean, you're already going to be tired as it is, so kicking back and relaxing, you're going to want to do it.
In between prejudging and finals, like I seriously took a nap the whole time. I'm like, I'm just going to relax. Yeah. I
stayed in the competitors lounge and I ended up passing out. I set my alarm for when I would need to wake up, and once you get back up there for the finals, you're going to get your little touch up. So I know when I slept, I ended up sweating a little bit. So, but they'll fix your tan for you. You'll get a couple coats, but they'll do touch ups, and then they'll also do your oil for you. But yeah, that was about it. But just stick to the game. Stick to the game plan.
Exactly. Yep. And then did you want to talk about kind of like how to make it not so boring food-wise?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, so some tricks and tips. Try to have fun with your meals as much as you can. Obviously you want to, watch what you're eating and the types of food that you're eating, but you can still have fun with it. So like for me with the food, usually I'll do like a post-workout shake. Well, I make fun out of it and I turn it into a protein ice cream shake. So what I end up doing is I'll throw my egg whites in there for a majority of the protein, and then I take a scoop of my own protein and then put it in there. And normally it's a very low calorie, like zero sugar, low fat type of protein powder, so I don't have all the extra calories. But you blend that up and you just eat it like ice cream. You could take, I use Walden Farms. They got all the different syrups that are 0 calories. So I mean, you can get the benefits of the sweet. So then like using the artificial sweeteners, it definitely helps kind of suffice that sweet tooth if you have one, which I do. And then also depending on how you can play with your diet, like I would make these protein cookies, and as long as you're making them, you know what's in them. Like, so like for me, it would mainly just be like banana with oatmeal, maybe a little bit of peanut butter, and that was about it. And then you just bake it. So it's, all healthy foods that you normally would eat, and it's, whole food, and what's in it. You're not adding all these preservatives and fats and stuff like that. And that's something that really helped me. As far as recently, I found out that the air fryer is amazing for any type of meats. I love it. So it's like that thing is the ultimate go-to. Like it's very convenient as well, because it's like you can bake, your food. You can do it on the pan. You could do it on the grill. The grill is what was my go-to. But when it's on the grill, you got to watch it. And then if you overdo it, it's bad. If you undercook it, it's bad. So with the air fryer, it's like I just put what I need in there. I set it to a certain temperature, certain time, and I could let it sit there and I walk away. And every single time it comes out nice and crispy on the outside and very moist and just fully cooked. Very moist, yeah. I mean, it is moist. It's not all dry.
Yeah.
It's not all dry.
It's juicy.
It's juicy, there you go. But it's perfectly cooked every single time. So it's like when you're eating the same foods, and it's like sometimes you lose an appetite because you're like fuck, I don't want to eat fish again, or I don't want to eat chicken again. But when it tastes like that, it's really not that hard to want to eat it again. It's actually enjoyable. So that's definitely a trick. And then as well as playing with the foods, like for me, like if you end up having beef in your diet, make yourself some beef patties, and I would cut up some bell peppers. I would do those in the pan, and then I would slap avocado on top of all of that, and that's an amazing no carb meal. You could add other things. Seasonings are fine. Like I have no problems with seasonings. Add some salt to your meal. Add some low calorie sauces to your meal.
Yeah, good brand for the sauces. I think it's Mr. Hughes. He has a lot like barbecue sauces that are super low calorie. Okay. Like Thai sweet chili, stuff like that, which can make it fun.
Ooh, yeah.
But yeah, I also find seasonings with super low sodium. Like you could kind of find anything really. It's just looking out for it or Googling it. What I like to do if I like have a sweet tooth or I'm kind of feeling hungry, I'll have like a sparkling water and then squirt some Mio or some sugar-free like juice enhancer type thing. And that works really well for me.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just kind of finding those little things to make it a little more fun or enjoyable.
The diet sodas are a lifesaver. So it's like if you are in such a low calorie deficit and your meals are small portions, if you eat a small meal with a diet soda with that meal, for some reason I don't know if it's just in your head.
So much more.
I don't know if it's in your head, but it really does fill you up more. So it's just a lot more satisfying. I like to do that for myself.
Yeah.
But it's like play with things. So one thing that I recently did was when I had nuts in my diet, I took almonds and then I blended the almonds up so that way they were like a fine powder. And then I took my chicken and then I put it on top of my chicken and then I put it in the air fryer. Oh my, you wouldn't believe, like it was like having fried chicken, like a crusted fried chicken. So it's like, and that's, foods that you can eat on prep. It's just being creative with it. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean by playing with it. Like just put 2 and 2 together. You just got to think about how the foods work and then how you could put them together to make it taste good. So for me, I had an almond crusted chicken and it was really good. You could dip it into a mustard or any, low calorie sauce if you want to. Mm-hmm. So
sriracha is a big thing for me. I love sriracha.
My big go-to is chicken tenders. So chicken breasts, most of the time it's really hard to get the chicken breast cooked perfect to where you could enjoy it every time. Chicken tenders, it doesn't seem to matter how you cook them. You could air fry them, you could pan cook them, you could grill them. And it's very quick and it's, cooked perfect almost every time. Yeah. So that's been my go-to. As far as like fish wise, I do tilapia, but shrimp was one of my go-tos that I really liked doing. I enjoyed that. Did that in the air fryer as well. But I also like to do like skewers and just put a bunch of shrimp on the skewers and throw it on the barbecue. Comes out really good every time. As far as like your carbohydrates, like you just play with the different carbohydrates. Main ones that I stuck to was oatmeal, potatoes, rice. But you could get like cream of rice, and then with the cream of rice you could throw in a scoop of protein. So it's like cream of rice, it just tastes like rice, but when you add that protein, it absorbs that protein flavor. So if you have a chocolate, flavor, now you're gonna have chocolate rice, but it no longer tastes like rice. It's almost like a chocolate pudding type thing. It's almost like a dessert. All right, you guys, we're gonna wrap this up. I mean, I think we got out pretty much our full experience on each show and what to expect and some tricks here and there. Shout out to our coaches. Go ahead and follow IFBBPro_Chris Dim if you want coaching as well. You can follow Jill Johnson. It's Jill Johnson Wellness. Yep. And you can follow them on Instagram. She does coaching for females. They also have a total sculpting business that they just opened up. They do
teeth whitening, cryoskin, infrared sauna wraps. They do cool sculpting. Yeah, I think that's about it. But yeah, they have a lot of business ventures. They also breed Frenchies.
Oh yeah, yeah. Check out.
So
yeah.
check out their pages. We'll link everything or put it in the caption, something like that. But
yeah, so if you guys like the content, please like, subscribe, share it to you guys. We hope to do more collaborations later on. Maybe do some training videos. If you guys leave some comments on the videos, stuff that you may want to see us do together, that'd be awesome. That really helps us, be creative. But we're still going to be creative on our own and think of things to do. But if there's stuff that you guys want to see, it just helps
open to suggestions.
Yeah, open to suggestions. That helps for us to, know what the audience wants to see.
Yeah.
So if you want to see more experiences, we're both 4 weeks out from the Governor Cup show as of today. So we're both going to end up be doing a vlog of our experience up until the show. So go ahead and check out our YouTube channels, so that way you guys can see our experience for this next Governor Cup show. I'm sure it's going to be a little bit different. Luckily, it's local.
That's nice.
So we don't have to travel. It'll be a lot less, stressful. So a little, maybe more enjoyable, but I think we'll both have fun with the experience, and hopefully we both do well.
Yeah.
Hopefully she can qualify. Yeah.
Yes.
If she qualifies for nationals, maybe we can both do one of the national shows.
And come full circle.
Yeah, one of the national shows together. I think that would be really cool to do too. But as far as that, please, you guys just share, and like I said, leave some comments, and we'll do our best to put out some good content. All right, have a good day.